Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. We've been on a real bread kick lately,
Oh, yeah.
and well, frankly, I'm not getting tired of it.
Me neither.
So today we're going even deeper into the world of sourdough, but with a special focus
Okay.
on whole grains. So if you love that, artisanal food scene, if you're all about those crazy complex flavors,
Hmm.
if you care about what you put in your body and you respect those traditions that have stood the test of time, then buckle up.
I love it.
Because we're about to unlock the secrets of whole grain sourdough and how it can totally transform your baking game.
It's pretty amazing when you think about it. Sourdough itself, it's not just some, trendy baking method. It's a tradition that goes back literally thousands of years.
Oh, yeah, for
It's
sure.
like this fundamental shift in how we approach bread making. You're harnessing the power of these wild yeasts and bacteria that are naturally present in flour.
Right.
They're the ones doing the heavy lifting, the leavening,
Totally.
and that slow fermentation process, that's what gives sourdough that signature tangy flavor, that complex texture that you just don't get with commercial yeast.
It's night and day, right? And then you bring whole grains into the picture. And we're not just talking, your standard whole wheat flour here. We're talking spelt rye emmer.
Oh yeah, a whole world of grains out there.
Grains that have been nourishing people for centuries, but often get overlooked in the sourdough world.
It's true.
And you know what? They're nutritional powerhouses packed with fiber and essential nutrients.
Absolutely.
And the flavors, oh my goodness, the flavors, they add this depth and complexity that you just can't replicate with refined flours.
It's like the difference between listening to a single instrument and then a whole symphony orchestra.
Such a good analogy. So, in this deep dive, we're on a mission to discover how incorporating these whole grains into your sourdough can completely elevate your loaves, not just in terms of taste and texture,
Hmm.
but also that nutritional value.
It's a win-win.
Total win-win. Now, let's rewind a bit and look at the historical roots of sourdough. Our sources make it crystal clear this is not some fleeting fad.
Not at all.
This is a tradition that stretches back thousands of years. It's intertwined with human civilization itself.
I mean, think about it. Sourdough predates the use of commercial yeast by centuries.
Right.
For early civilizations, it wasn't just one option. It was the way to make bread.
Exactly. It was fundamental to their lives, their culture. And it's fascinating how this ancient technique has experienced such a powerful revival in recent times.
I think it's that growing awareness of health and sustainability.
Oh, for sure.
People are yearning for more authentic food experiences. They're looking back at these time-tested methods.
And sourdough fits right in with its natural process and that depth of flavor.
Absolutely. And what's really interesting is how this sourdough revival happened alongside another major trend, the recognition of how amazing whole grains are for you.
Totally, as people learn more about the benefits of consuming the entire grain kernel, with the bran, the germ, everything intact, they started to think, hey, what if we brought these nutrient-packed grains into the world of sourdough?
It's a natural progression, right?
It is. And when we look at the historical timeline, it's amazing to see how these two forces, sourdough and whole grains, have always been intertwined.
Yeah, like back in ancient times, it wasn't even a question. They just used what they had.
Right. Whole grains were simply the norm.
Exactly. Milling techniques weren't nearly as refined as they are today, so sourdough fermentation was just naturally applied to those whole grains.
Makes sense. And then you jump ahead to the Middle Ages, and our sources highlight how rye became a dominant grain in Europe.
Oh yeah, those hearty rye breads.
And guess what the common method for leavening it was?
Sourdough, of course.
Bingo! Those dense, flavorful rye breads that we still love today owe so much of their character to sourdough fermentation.
And rye flour is actually perfect for sourdough.
How so?
Well, it's got a lower gluten content than wheat flour.
Okay.
So that long, slow fermentation in sourdough really helps develop the structure and texture of the bread. Prevents it from being crumbly. The lactic acid from the sourdough also contributes to that distinct flavor.
It all comes together, and the 20th century rolls around, and boom, industrial bread making takes center stage.
Right, mass production.
And sadly, we see a decline in the use of both sourdough and whole grains.
Efficiency and speed became the priorities.
Yeah, suddenly it was all about commercial yeast for a faster rise and refined white flour.
Stripped of all the good stuff.
Exactly, which, allowed for mass production and longer shelf life, but often at the expense of nutrition and those complex flavors that we get from whole grains and sourdough.
It was a big shift away from those traditional methods.
It was. But thankfully, the story doesn't end there.
Oh no.
We've seen this incredible resurgence in recent decades, the revival of artisanal baking,
People are craving real bread again.
and that focus on the health benefits and rich flavors of whole grains. It sparked this wave of innovation in sourdough recipes.
It's exciting to see bakers experimenting with so many different types of whole grains.
It really is. It's like they're taking this ancient craft and expanding its horizons.
It shows that you don't have to choose between tradition and innovation,
Right.
or between health and flavor.
Whole grain sourdough brings it all together. And speaking of innovators, our sources point to some key figures who have really shaped the whole grain sourdough movement.
Oh yeah, the pioneers?
First up, we've got Chad Robertson of Tartine Bakery.
A legend.
His name is practically synonymous with sourdough excellence.
He's not just following traditional methods, he's pushing boundaries.
Right.
He's inspired so many bakers to explore the potential of whole grains in sourdough.
Right.
His focus on high hydration doughs and those long fermentation times,
Yeah.
that's what allows the flavors of the grains to really shine through.
And then we have Sarah Owens, an award-winning author and baker who champions the connection between whole grains and exceptional baking.
She's amazing.
She advocates for using a wide variety of grains, not just for their nutrition, but for the incredible array of flavors and textures they bring.
Each grain has its own personality.
Yeah. I love that. And by understanding those nuances, bakers can create sourdough loaves that are truly unique and complex.
She encourages people to experiment to see how different grains interact with the sourdough process.
It's like she's saying, don't be afraid to explore those flavors.
Exactly. A buckwheat sourdough is going to be totally different from a spelt sourdough.
Right. Each one has its own story to tell.
And its own unique taste and texture.
Before we get too deep into the how-to, let's pause and appreciate a couple of those mind-blowing facts that our sources dug up.
Oh, I love these.
Things that really highlight the historical significance of what we're talking about.
Hit me with them.
Okay, so did you know that rye sourdough is considered one of the oldest bread varieties in Europe?
Really?
Yeah, its origins go all the way back to the Iron Age.
Wow, so rye and sourdough have been partners for a long time.
It's incredible to think about, and this next point really drives home the historical connection. Whole grain sourdough isn't just some trendy new thing, it's a direct link to our ancestors.
How so?
Well, they relied on whole grains out of necessity long before refined flours even existed.
Right.
So they were naturally making sourdough with those whole grains.
It was just the way it was done.
It was done. It's like we're reconnecting with these fundamental ways of eating and baking that sustained people for generations.
Makes you appreciate it even more.
It does. So after all of this, what would you say is the key takeaway for our listeners? What's the big picture message about the power of whole grain sourdough?
You know, for me, it's that when you embrace whole grain sourdough, you're not just experimenting with new flavors and textures, you're really enriching the nutritional value of your bread.
Okay,
And you're aligning yourself with a more sustainable and wholesome way of eating.
I like that.
It's this beautiful blend of time-honored baking techniques with a modern understanding of health and well-being.
Right. And it's not just about making a loaf of bread, although the results can be spectacular.
Oh, yeah.
It's about tapping into this rich culinary history,
Mm-hmm.
celebrating those whole, unprocessed foods,
Yes.
and engaging in this truly mindful and artisanal process in your own kitchen.
And you know what? It's not as intimidating as it might seem.
You're right.
Working with whole grains and sourdough can be a bit more challenging than using refined flour.
Sure.
But it's such a rewarding process of learning and discovery.
You start to understand how different grains behave in your starter and dough.
And it opens up this whole world of possibilities.
It does. So as you think about diving into the world of whole grain sourdough, remember that each loaf you create can be more than just food.
It's a story.
It is. It's a story that combines history, a commitment to your well-being, and your own unique creativity.
And whether you're a seasoned sourdough pro or just starting out,
Mm-hmm.
there's always something new to learn when you start working with whole grains.
So true. And here's a final thought to leave you with. Think about how these ancient techniques, these time-tested methods of using whole grains, and the slow magic of fermentation, how they can directly impact the flavor and the nutrition of the food we eat today.
It's pretty amazing.
It is. It makes you wonder what other traditional food practices might be out there just waiting to be rediscovered.
Food for thought.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of whole grain sourdough.
Until next time.
Happy baking!
Cheers.